All right, here we go. We're near the filing, and it does you no good as an organization to have no Republican candidates. So you need to make sure your candidates make it on the ballot. Your conservative candidates, if you're a conservative organization, you want to make sure that they make it on the ballot. Otherwise, the whole next year, I don't know what you're going to do with no candidates. So I'm here with Matt Duray. I'm Collin Corbett. We're going to walk you through this process of making sure your candidates make it on the ballot. First things first, because this is fresh on my mind, we've looked at 3 petitions in the last few weeks that were not actually accurate, that had fatal flaws, which meant that if they were challenged or objected to, they would be knocked off the ballot. Not a risk they were willing to take. They had to restart their petitions. So first things first, I know we're almost at filing, but we got to start here. Make sure your candidates have a good, solid petition. Make sure if there are candidates that you're supporting, or even if you're not supporting, if you're staying out of it, still ask them all to send you your petition or their petition and look at them, review them, make sure they're okay. Because you want a robust primary. You want people on the ballot. And if people are getting knocked off because their petitions aren't good, now you're going to have fewer candidates or no candidates. Now, if you've got your favorites, feel free to just look at theirs. That's fine too. But look at the petitions now, because these errors happen more often than you think, where they forget to include a detail, or they miss one of the fields, or they screw up one of the pieces of information they have to include. It happens more often than you think, and so that's the first step, is just make sure their petitions are good, right?
Yes, and a lot of times the people that are in the organizations have been around for multiple election cycles, but the candidates might be a first-time candidate, and what an organization or someone who's experienced politically might think is just common sense. Of course you put your address and the full term in the district, but a candidate might not know, and next thing you know they have 1,000 signatures and you see their petition and it's wrong and they have to go back and get all of them.
Yeah, most candidates, from what I've seen, there's a few who take it seriously at the beginning, but most at the beginning don't realize that this is a legal process. It isn't a change.org kind of situation where you can just say whatever you want. This is a legal process, and most candidates don't realize that. So they download the sample petition, they throw some information in there, and they go out and start passing, all excited to start the process. They don't realize that one word difference could be on the ballot versus not on the ballot. Most candidates don't realize that. So make sure you check that. Now, you've done that. How do you make sure your candidates get enough signatures to get on the ballot? This is where you as an organization can obviously provide that support, providing circulators, going out and getting them signatures. So in a short period of time here, we want to go through some tips and tricks on how you can maximize the number of signatures that you're able to deliver for the candidates that you're trying to help make it on the ballot. So what are some thoughts that you've got?
Yes, well, the first thing would be, if you're a political organization such as a township where you have committeemen, your committeemen are going to need signatures too. So make sure that you get your candidates, have them send their petition early, and you send that to your committeemen when they're going out and getting signatures.
Yeah, and in Cook County is the only county where that's different, where now the committeeman, who's the township committeeman, needs signatures. If they're up, it's every 4 years, so they might not be up. So just to make sure I give that clarifying point. But either way, make sure your people, your committeemen, your precinct captains are out there getting signatures. It's a great way for them to start to get active. Most of our political people, let's be honest, haven't done much since the last election. That was 10, 11 months ago, depending on when you watch this video. So ultimately, it's time to knock off that rust and get them back out there, because we got to be ready for 2024. So I'm with you on that. What else?
Yes. Your organization likely has an infrastructure that candidates will need because they don't have the infrastructure just yet. So use that to your advantage and also for the benefit of the candidate. You know the precincts like the back of your hand. You know what libraries to go to. You know what train stations to go to. You know what people that the candidate should be talking to. A lot of times, a huge thing that you can give them is just knowledge of telling them where to go, who to talk to, what to say and what not to say. If you're a candidate running countywide, what you say in one township on one side of the county is going to be really different than the other side of the county, and you as a township can equip them with that. Another thing too would be to have, when you have events, when you have meetings, when your people are going to the different meetings in that area, you could have your people introduce the candidate, you could have them bring the petition there, and you'll have maybe an email list of 500 people, or you'll have meetings where 50 people attend. Those are all people that you as an organization can be introducing to the candidate, and they can be getting signatures for that candidate.
Yeah, and even host specific events. We've seen some townships do this, some counties do this, even some conservative organizations have done this, where they host some sort of petition event. Come on out, get your signatures, and getting bodies there. It's really great, and even the community appreciates that, because now they're going to be bugged less at the train station station and the grocery store and the library, because like, hey, you know what? I'll come out one time to the local whatever, the civic center, wherever this might be held. I'll come out once, sign 30 sheets, and go home and never be bothered again for this, at least until the next election. You'll see a lot of people interested in that. So maybe create an event, host it, and then do a round of texts out to every hard Republican in the district, in your district or in your township or in your county, or do Facebook posts, emails, whatever you need to do to promote it and get bodies there. This is a tremendous help for the candidate. This is a huge boost for your organization. It raises your profile. It lets people know you exist. It's an excuse there. And you might find that you're going to get not only more signatures, but more excitement, more members, more commitment out of it. Maybe it's a great recruitment tool. There's a lot of reasons why hosting your own sort of petition style event would be a huge benefit to everybody involved. What are other tips that we can talk about on how to get more signatures?
Yes, and the organization can definitely benefit from that, and that this is a way that you can prove yourself. One of the things is that a lot of times in elections you don't really see the results until election day, but with petitions you do see the results right then and there when you have the petitions in your hand. So you can tell the people that are in your organization that this is a great way that the organization can prove itself to the candidates that they want to get elected. It also gives you an excuse to talk to people. A lot of times people don't like someone knocking on their door just to hand them information or something like that for the political party or the organization. But if you have something tangible that you can give to people, that they can sign, that they can take part in the civic process, it's great because it gives you an excuse to do your job.
Yeah, and I'll say to that, if we can help in any way, let us know. We've got a sheet that we use for all of our clients that has instructions for circulators, instructions for the signers. We're happy to send it to you. You can throw your logo on it. You don't have to use our logo. That's fine. But if it helps make sure you guys are following the rules and doing what needs to be done so that you're providing good signatures for your candidates and you're making sure they have what they need to make it on the ballot, we're in for that. We're happy to help. So contact us. Contact Matt. He's happy to get it over to you and make sure you have what you need. Now, to that point, how do we make sure they make it on the ballot? A lot of these candidates, some may have legal support, some may not. As a matter of fact, many typically don't. And so one of the things we've seen that's super helpful is give them advice on how to put their filing packet together, and most importantly, where to go to file, how to file, what the opening time is. Because a lot of these, we've been doing this a long time, and even we have trouble knowing exactly when the clerk's office opens, because sometimes it's listed online, sometimes it's not. Sometimes during petition season, they have special hours. And of course, if you're trying to make it on the ballot in a certain position in your race, you need to know, do I show up at a certain time, at this time or that time? So even just providing that for your candidates could be super helpful. What else can these organizations do to help make sure their candidates make it on the ballot from a filing perspective?
Yes, likely the organization will have access to voter data. They can make sure that the signatures are valid, that they have enough signatures. They also might be able to provide notary services. A candidate doesn't know where to go for a notary, but if you have someone at your meetings who's a notary, then the candidate doesn't have to worry about that. And also, if they do get objected to, or if there is a process, a lot of times you as an organization have gone through that before.
Yeah, and we'll cover objections next. So it's a good point. Yeah, you're jumping the gun a little bit. But on this filing, I think that's a great idea. You know, you're probably going to have some sort of notary, if not multiple notaries. Make them available to these candidates. That's huge. Not only for their petitions, but several of their filing packet pages also need to be notarized. So that final couple days, candidates are desperate for notaries, often at weird hours of the day. If you can provide that value and that benefit to your candidates, it's going to be a huge help for them. So that's a good thing. I also think when it comes to making sure their signatures are good, you know, even just if you've got people who maybe can't go door to door, but they're good on a computer, you can have them do a spot check of those candidates and just, hey, you know, 1 or 2 lines per sheet, could you look at them and do a spot check and make sure they're registered and just give us a general idea of how good this packet is and how solid our signatures are? Or do we need to go out, you know, the next week and not file on day 1, instead file on the last day and take advantage of that extra week to get more signatures? That would be a huge help to these candidates as well. So I think those are 2 huge things you can provide in addition to the information on where to go to file, how to file. You're not an attorney, though if you have one, you can make available to them. That'd be huge. But even without that, just some general advice would really help these candidates. Anything else on the filing before we get into objections?
You covered it.
All right, so objections. Matt was right. It's a big thing. So what can you do as these candidates face potential objections, challenges? They're going to need support to make it through that. So what can an organization do to help with that process?
Yes, well, the primary thing and the thing that you're going to be dealing with right away is the candidate calling you saying, uh-oh, my petitions are getting objected. Am I off the ballot? I'm freaking out. Please help. and you could be that voice of reason. You've been through this. You could say, listen, we'll send some people down to the courthouse or the clerk's office or however your election jurisdiction works it out. You can provide bodies, you can provide mental support, emotional support, and you can also provide the knowledge of you've gone through that before. We could verify these signatures are valid. We verified your petition, so you could give them the reassurance that it is valid and they will be on the ballot. And then when push comes to shove, if they do have to show up in court or they do have to show that the signatures are valid, you'll have the people behind you and the members of your organization who've been there, and they could stand behind the candidate and make sure that they don't get kicked off.
Yeah, and I say the first thing, we've handled a number of objections, and even we don't do it without help from an election attorney. So your first thing is help them find an election attorney. If you don't have one, again, feel free to reach out to us. We'll hook you up. We've got 3 or 4 or 5 that we've used. We don't get a cut. We don't get anything out of it, but if it helps you, we're in to help you out. So if they do get objected to, feel free to reach out to us and we can give advice. We can hook you up with an election attorney. So that might be one of the things that they ask you for. Second thing, as Matt said, you're going to have to check everything. Before this goes to the binder check or whatever your election jurisdiction might call that step where they do check signatures, before it goes to that point, you want to be equipped. You want to know, what are we going to do about each of these signatures that have been objected to? And so you're going to look at those and you're going to do your research before you ever get to that official process, so you know exactly which ones to fight for, which ones not to fight for. That takes bodies. So you're going to need to help that candidate, give them some bodies to help go through that process and do that review process. And then as Matt said, if this is an objection that relates to signatures, which most do, it's going to go to something called a binder check, where there's a clerk's employee or some government employee in there, and you're able to provide one person, the objector is able to provide one person, and they go through signature by signature, and often they'll have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've seen some where they have had 15 or 20 employees on your case at once, which means you've got to provide 15 or 20 bodies, because the worst case scenario is the objector has someone there to give their case why that signature needs to be struck, and you don't have somebody there to fight to keep that signature. So bodies are going to be a big part of that binder check process. Most likely for you, if you're not running for governor, it's going to be 3 to 5 bodies at a time that you need. But think about that. From start to finish, it's going to be 3 to 5 bodies in 2-hour shifts or 4-hour shifts for a couple days. So you're going to need people. That's a big help you can provide to these candidates. Anything else on the objection process that you can think of that the organizations can help with? That covers it. We got it all there. All right, so final advice to organizations on how to make sure your candidates make it on the ballot. Anything you want to close with that we maybe didn't cover or you want to re-emphasize?
Well, if you're a political organization, your main purpose is to get candidates elected, and they can't get elected unless they're first on the ballot. So this is the most important thing, the most tangible thing that you can do as an organization to support the candidate. So don't miss out on this step. And make sure the candidate's going to be kind of doing an interview too of like, how's this organization going to help me out in the rest of the campaign? Do I like them? Do I like the people? Do I want to support them at all? This is your time to show what a powerful organization you are. It's a time to build up your volunteer base, build up your leads of people that you want to know, and build your relationship with the candidates, so don't let it go to waste.
Yeah, this is basically your last scrimmage before this thing really gets real, because after this, it's the holidays, and then it's election season. This is it. This is your last chance to make sure you're ready for the real fight come 2024. So as Matt said, don't waste that opportunity. If we can help in any way, looking at petitions for your people, giving you the instruction sheet, hooking you up with an election attorney, whatever we can do to help, reach out to us. We'd be happy to support you and assist you. Because as Matt said, if you don't get your candidates on the ballot, we're all wasting our time in 2024. So please, let's make sure we do this right. Don't sort of cheap out or lazy out in this initial stage, and then all of 2024 we're kicking ourselves because in that race we could have won, we don't have a candidate. Please, please, please don't let that happen. Let us know how we can help. We'll be back in your inbox soon with even more helpful tips. But right now, it's all about getting on the ballot, so let's get on the ballot.